Hey guys, I am the Nast Blast, back here with yet another Wizard101 video. And today, I want to do some more rankings. This time, on the actual schools in the game. Which is the best, and which is the worst. Now, I'm going to be ranking all 7 of the school types, mainly on how easy they are to play solo. You know, without any other wizards helping out. Because that changes the importance and viability of most of these wizards. Much like the school I have ranked in the very bottom. Whether they are on a team or not definitely changes their playstyle and how good they are. This school I'm talking about, of course, is Balance. Now, when it comes to uniqueness, Balance is definitely on the top, but with the unique playstyle comes some challenge. Every other school comparatively plays very similar, having blades, shields, and traps for their school, having types that they are strong against and weak against, and having attacks that primarily use their school damage type. For the most part, Balance doesn't really have this, and is commonly considered a support school. There are no straight up balance blades, traps, or shields used just for balance, and anything like this that Balance can do is used universally for every school. Now, on the surface level that sounds pretty good, and makes Balance seem pretty OP, but this mainly means that anything Balance does get is weaker and has to be used in a more strategical way. And also, a lot of balance spells don't even use balanced damage, and uses other school types for damage, some of which being random. This makes it a little bit more confusing when you try to get balanced gear and trying to decide what kind of damage and stats you want to put in. This makes balance pretty inconsistent, especially early game, but later on does get a lot better, much like most schools. However, I'm mainly considering how easy the schools are when it comes to early and mid game, because that's really where the differences in schools are seen. So yeah, because of that, Balance is on the bottom, being the most unusual and challenging school of the game, especially to play solo. And next up, we got a school I very much like, and a lot of people seem to feel the same way. We are talking about Storm. Yeah, the hardest hitting school in the game. However, this leaves Storm with what some people may call the glass cannon syndrome. Yeah, they hit really hard, but have the smallest health pool in the game. Now sometimes, especially late game, this doesn't really matter too much. You just gotta end things real quick with a really strong spell. However, in early and mid game, it's not as simple. Mainly because Storm also has very bad case of the fizzles. Yeah, they also have the lowest accuracy in the game. Low health pool and high fizzle chance definitely makes this a hard school to solo. And there are schools that can eventually hit just as hard, with higher health and accuracy, so for that reason, Storm is going all the way down here, unfortunately. Now, on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, we got Ice. Now, some of you may be wondering how Ice is all the way down here, being the tankiest school in the game, and one of the hardest to kill. Well, yeah, it is very tanky, but that is its main strength. When it comes to damage, it's kind of horrible. Pretty much the worst in the game. Yeah, sure, you can stay alive longer than Storm, but it doesn't really help it out too much because you're doing so much less damage, and usually stretches these battles out forever. Again, things are pretty different when it comes to late game, but for at least the first half of the game, Ice is pretty weak when compared to the other schools. Best thing Ice gets, and its main gimmick, is pretty much universal shields. And yeah, they can be pretty useful, but that's all Ice is good at pretty much, being a stall. And stalling through this game isn't very fun. Typically, you want to be able to grind through a lot of this stuff relatively quickly, and when playing Ice, just about every battle is going to drag out, making the grind so much longer. However, there is a school type that I think is a better stall to play, and that is Life, coming in next on the list. The cool thing about Life type, pretty much, is the heals. There are a lot of battles in this game that are made way easier when you are given decent heals to use, and Life pretty much gets all of them. Now, the only gripe I got with Life pretty much is the absence of a good early 4-pip AoE spell like almost every other school gets. There is a good 4-pip AoE spell, don't get me wrong, but the grind for it is a real hassle, and isn't really an option for most first-time players. There is a good bypass for all this though, by just easily breeding with a Kookaburra pet in the pet pavilion, which will give you a free Leaf Storm spell, which, you know, of course is an AoE. So if you manage to get that, it makes Life School a lot more viable and less tedious. Unlike Ice, where the stall is focused on shields, Life allows you to regenerate pretty much, allowing for a better chance of survival, plus the damage is usually slightly better than Ice as well, making Life, in my opinion, better than Ice. And with those 4 schools out the way, we're starting to get to what I think are definitely the best schools to play solo. And if you're playing for the first time, these are the ones you probably would want to go for. Taking the top 3rd spot on my list is a school I have the least amount of experience with, but I've seen enough to know that this one's pretty clutch. I am referring to the School of Fire. Fire is a school that gets really good damage, rivaling even Storm, except Fire has better accuracy most of the time. Also, it has higher health, and it also doesn't really have to worry about its enemy shields with its common use of damage over time spells. This bypasses the most annoying school to fight in the game, Ice, with its constant shielding, while Fire also being super effective on Ice. And this adds up to having the ability to blitz through Winter Tusk too, which is stacked in Ice bosses, so playing this school is definitely super convenient. All around, Fire seems to just be fun. Also having a fat collection of AoEs, making solo runs a lot faster. What could be better than Fire though, you may be asking? Well, 2 schools actually, and the one I'm going to be putting on the top 2nd spot is going to be Myth.
Yes.
Yeah, Myth, back in the day, wouldn't have made it this far up, being a pretty mid school, relying on a minion gimmick. Minions can be okay, especially early game, but for the most part are pretty useless. But in recent years, it seems Myth has moved past that, being a very good, well-rounded school. Myth has decent accuracy, solid defense and health, and recently got a huge damage buff with Orthrus becoming an AoE, hitting for a whopping 700 damage. That's more than Storm's 7-pip Stormlord, making Myth one of the hardest hitting schools in the game. Orthrus isn't the only AoE spell that's good though. Of course they get the iconic Humungo Frog, but they also get Earthquake, which can be extremely OP, destroying all the blades and shields an opponent team has. That's actually crazy when you think about it. Myth is just all around good and doesn't really have any weak spots, making it, in my opinion, a very top tier school and came very close to being the #1 school. But of course, we have another school on this list, and looking back, there's just no way I could put any other school higher when it comes to solo play. I am talking about the most OP school in this game, and that is the Death School. Yes, the edgy school is the best, but for good reason. Not only does Death have solid defense with a decent health pool and pretty good accuracy, it also has some of the best debuffs in the game like Plague and Bad Juju. But that's not it. No, Death's best attribute is its main gimmick, that being the ability to deal drain damage. This is the act of dealing damage to an enemy and then transferring half of that damage dealt into health for you. This can be extremely OP with AoE spells, mainly Scarecrow and Cthulhu. This means more time than not, if you stack a couple blades and hit with Scarecrow against multiple enemies, you are likely to get all of your health back. Unlike Life, where you have to decide whether to attack or heal in that turn, Death just does both. You can just do both at the same time. And also a good majority of major bosses in the game are Death, so having access to Death Prism and Death Shields makes fighting these bosses a lot easier. And of course, Death also has access to the most OP trap spell in the game without having to use any training points, the almighty Feint. The only real downside I can give to Death is the fact that they don't have an early game 4-pip AoE, much like Life. There are 4-pip AoEs, you know, if you get Ship of Fools, great. Good luck getting it though. But of course, just like Life, you can bypass this too by hatching with a pet. For Death, it is the Gloomy Eye pet, which gives you a 4-pip AoE of Death Frog. That's pretty nifty. But honestly, when you get the Scarecrow, the game becomes trivial, turning you into a regenerating monster on the level of Majin Buu. And for that reason, I have to give Death School the award of being the best solo school in the game, and probably just the best school in general. And yeah, that is my ranking. If you enjoyed the video, or if it has influenced you on what school you want to try, please let me know in the comments. And if you want to see more of my content, I've got plenty more Wizard101 videos in the works, as well as some other game videos. If you want to check out my second channel, that's where I'll be posting gameplay videos if you're interested. That is at the Nast Cast. Well anyways, I am the Nast Blast, and I'll see you next time. And I hope you have a nasty night. Peace out.